And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Now, we all remember Neil Young humiliating himself by firstly boycotting Spotify in protest against Joe Rogan after trying to get the world's most popular podcaster cancelled for so-called misinformation during the COVID era. He wrote, "They can have Rogan or Young, not both." Yes, he wrote that in an open letter. The silly old delusional fool was back at Spotify with his tail between his legs. Seems money trumped his principles. Now he has launched another protest with a song lambasting Elon Musk. So let's see what he's singing here. He's singing what? Yeah, okay, that's as bad as I expected. If you're wondering what he's saying there, because it's very hard to tell, the lyrics are, if you're a fascist, get a Tesla, it's electric, it doesn't matter. I'm going to play you the next 10 seconds. I think that's all we can stomach for one day. Get ready to cringe some more.
If you're a Democrat, taste your freedom, get whatever you want, taste your freedom.
Somehow that next 10 seconds was even worse than the first. And the lyrics there, and I have to tell you the lyrics because it just sounds like incoherent wailing. But what he's saying there is, if you're a Democrat, taste your freedom, get whatever you want, taste your freedom. Profound stuff. Now, let's check in on some lefty v lefty violence. I hate it when they turn on each other. Here is veteran Democrat strategist and Trump-deranged loon James Carville talking to a junior Democrat strategist and Trump-deranged vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, David Hogg. Grab the popcorn, folks. This is fun.
I think it is abominable that an official of a political party who is being paid or supported by that political party to go out and raise money to defeat members of the same party. I think that's a jackassery of the highest level.
James, can you tell me
if you want to beat Republicans, of which of course lefties never do, they never even run against them. That's one thing. I'm not into beating Democrats. I'm into beating Republicans. And I'll tell you right to your face, I think it's abominable that you have anything to do with the DNC.
Oh, it gets better. James Carville is extra spicy here.
I called on Joe Biden to drop out of the race in 2022. Where were you? Where was the young cool generation coming? Did they step in there and say something? I spoke out against the horrific language of identity politics. Where was everybody else?
What is your plan to deal with our abominable approval rating?
Win elections.
Ah, so good. Now let's hear from Hollywood has-been Sean Penn and listen to this absolutely unhinged rant about Donald Trump. This is the most asinine analogy you'll hear all year.
And I do think it's a reasonable theory that Donald Trump is not unlike the spouse of someone who leaves him perhaps for another, who then murders their former partner because if they can't have her, nobody can. And I think Donald Trump in his solipsism may have that relationship with the world, and that this destruction is in part a power play and also a literal intention of his final out.
You think he'll try to stay on?
I think he might try to destroy the world before he ages out of life.
Now, do you think there was any pushback against that madness from Jim Acosta or Eric Fang Solwell? No. Instead, we got this from the man who had an affair with a Chinese Communist Party spy. The nerve of this dude. This is just more tedious lunacy.
In the history of dictators or those who aspire to be dictators, there's never a succession plan, right? There's never, and that's what worries me is if he doesn't believe there's somebody who can protect him, that you will see him ratchet up, what he's willing to do to the country.
These people are nuts and massive hypocrites because I remember Sean Penn. This is a dude who actually loves real despots, real brutal dictators, like the one who helped destroy Venezuela. Yes, neo-Marxist Sean Penn was very fond of cozying up to the Venezuelan dictator, Hugo Chavez.
I will wish him nothing but that great strength he has shown over and over again. It is only possible to be so inspiring as he is.
Yeah, he's talking about the dictator there, seriously. Now, I'll tell you, TDS is a chronic condition. Indeed, if you believe the president, it is a fatal condition.
They suffer from a thing called TDS. Do you know what that is? Yes. TDS, it's a horrible, horrible terminal disease. It destroys the mind. It destroys the mind before the body, but the body eventually goes. TDS is Trump derangement syndrome.
He really is the funniest president we've ever had. And probably the most miserable first lady we've ever had is Michelle Obama. This woman can't find anything to be joyful about. We've heard her whinge incessantly about, well, everything on her low-rating podcast. She has even found a way to complain about the financial cost of being the first family.
It's expensive to live in the White House. As many people don't know, I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every food, every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane. It is an expensive proposition.
Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, the Obamas went into the White House with meagre assets. They're now worth somewhere between 70 to 250 million. And Michelle Obama continues to push this grievance politics. Is there no one in her inner circle who's telling her, this just looks terrible, you look so entitled and miserable?
Seemingly not. It really is fascinating. And, there's tone deaf and then there's tone deaf. This is just beyond the pale, like, we have to pay for our daughter's travel and
on a private jet.
On a private jet.
Taxpayer pays for.
I know, with Secret Service and everything else. And yeah, most of us, if we're traveling with our kids to any corporate event, the employer doesn't pay for our kids when we go and travel. So just the tone deaf is really funny. She's criticized Barack Obama a lot too on these podcasts.
This is what's been so interesting. She barely has anything positive to say about her husband, which in itself is raising eyebrows.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about the grievance, because there's the boilerplate grievance that they all do about racial injustice and social injustice. But in her case, it's personal, like having to pay for things, or, her husband and marriage.
Decade of unhappiness.
Right.
She talked about,
bad decades in America. So it's just, she seems like an unhappy person. I don't want to do armchair psychoanalysis of somebody, but it really seems that way. And it seems to be the language that she's most fluent in, the language of grievance. And so it keeps coming out day in and day out.
Well, I think she's finding through the data sets she's getting for her podcast, if anyone in her circle is honest enough to tell her the truth, the figures aren't good. I mean, that should tell her something, despite the enormous publicity she's receiving. Now, I played clips of Kamala Harris's first major speech since the election loss. Here is a mercifully short 8-second reminder.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake?
And here is Stephen Miller with a message for Kamala Harris and the broken Washington Press Corps. This is a powerful rebuke.
The only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology for joining Joe Biden, and remember, she was the border czar, joining Joe Biden in aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. And we're never going to stop talking about this, because what they did to this country is unforgivable. It is an eternal stain on the Democrat Party. Every day we read another story. Every day we arrest another alien they let into this country who raped a child, who beat a woman within an inch of her life, who murdered a mom, who murdered a dad, who trafficked drugs into this country, who trafficked fentanyl into this country, who are responsible for dead and slaughtered Americans. And I don't know what's broken in the Washington Press Corps, that none of that moves them emotionally. The only thing that gets them exercised is, do we need to have more trials for terrorist supporters? Do we need to have more trials for gangbangers? Do we need to have more trials for illegal alien invaders? Even though Congress and the Constitution clearly say that you can expel invaders and illegal aliens quickly, efficiently, and properly.
Kosher, the Democrats continue to advocate for an MS-13 gangbanger, or Maryland Dad as they prefer to call him. But we will hear very little from them, as Stephen Miller said there, about the victims of criminals who have come into the country illegally. And that is an enormous shortfall in the Democrats' moral compass. It's like, whose side are you on? Look at the way they've advocated for this lone criminal. Multiple Democrats have gone down to El Salvador to meet with him, to advocate on his behalf. But we don't even hear them mention these American victims of some of these really violent criminals who walked across the border unchecked, millions in Biden's 4-year term.
It's almost like there's just two different realities that we're living in, or that they're living in, versus the real world. And I don't know how much of it is TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, that anything where there's success, that's success for the American people, they just cannot give credit where credit's due, or how much of it is it doesn't affect them because they all live in very nice gated communities on the coast, so they don't have to live with that reality, so it's out of sight, out of mind for them, or it's just resistance, and now the judicial activism and lawfare is kind of their last line of defense to try and do that and give due process to people who exercise no due process when they came into the country, but they apparently deserve it on their way out, and that's just the hill they're dying on.
That would mean you would have these cases, given the millions that have come through, for 20, 30 years. I mean, it is just completely ridiculous to suggest that they have to exhaust a legal process as if they're American citizens and entitled to the same rights.
Makes absolutely no sense. And I think their strategy is to run out the clock.
Yeah.
Because we've only got 3.5 years left of this administration. Who knows what will happen in 2028. And this is going to a head about the judicial branch and the executive branch. And it is possible that you might see a point where the executive branch doesn't comply with an order. And that is going to be the so-called constitutional crisis.
Now, Stephen Miller, who you just heard from there, is in line to be elevated to President Trump's next national security advisor. Mike Waltz was ousted from the role last week. This is a move that would be enormously popular with the Trump-based Kosher, as Stephen Miller is very well regarded indeed.
He is the OG when it comes to immigration, just very strong legally, very smart lawyer, really seems to believe in this issue. There's all these memes how the Trump administration and his orbit inner circle were plotting for 4 years about their return and what they'll do, and he's always at the top of that as somebody who just came up with strategy, exactly which statutes are going to rely on, exactly which EOs are going to do, and he understands that immigration and border security is national security. That is one of the core tenets of it, and so if he is elevated to that position, I think it's going to bring a very interesting flavor.
Now, the Met Gala was on earlier today, and naturally there were scenes of violence with anti-Israeli activists attacking pro-Israeli activists. And Kosher, one of the attendees of this $70,000 a head get-together was Kamala Harris. Now, she was wearing an outfit described thusly by Vanity Fair, a bespoke black and cream silk off-white dress featuring colour blocking and a dramatic trailing sleeve, as well as a black scarf that doubled as a diminutive train for the look. It's also been compared to the iconic New York favourite dessert, the black and white cookie. That's a bit harsh. On a more serious note, Kosher, Kamala Harris is positioning herself to run again. The polls show that out of that very shallow talent pool, she is the front runner at the moment.
In her defense, she's not an unattractive lady, so I think I probably would have done one more fitting of the dress, but I think the black and white can look quite elegant, so I think she just maybe missed the mark a little bit, but it wasn't terrible. She is a front runner. I think it's recency bias, just because she was in the limelight for such a long period of time and was elevated to that role. Once things get serious, 18 months or so from now, 2 years from now, and you're going to see the likes of Gavin Newsom or Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer, other people, Mark Kelly, throw their hats into the ring. I think all of that's going to recalibrate. And nobody can forget that she has never won anything. Anytime she's run for any election, other than DA and senator in California, but that's kind of a foregone conclusion if you're a Democrat.
Well, yeah, if you've got a D next to your name, an inanimate carbon rod can get elected. Before you go, let's talk a little bit about Prince Harry. He's been busy trying to rewrite history.
You accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
The British press said that.
Right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they were racist?
She said there were troubling comments about...
there was concern about his skin colour.
Right.
concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What? Who is having that conversation? There is a conversation. Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
There's several conversations.
There's a
about
conversation with you,
with Harry,
about how dark your baby is going to be.
Yes, Harry and Meghan made that a major theme of their doco or reality series is really what it was. Kosher, now they want to claim it was all the work of the evil media, that they were just talking about unconscious bias. I mean, these semantic games they're playing, no one's falling for it.
No one's falling for it. There is a blueprint for it, whether it's everybody pretending that nobody knew about Joe Biden's mental decline or this. They tend to memory hold things and think we're not paying attention. We live in the day and age of videotape and social media, and that footage over there is never going to be forgotten, both what she said and Oprah's bad acting, where she's like, what? And nobody's going to ever forget that, and he can try to rewrite history all he wants. It's not going to work.
Kosher, thank you so much for your time, Kosher Gator. Now, the usual suspects, the Democrats and their propaganda arm, the bulk of the mainstream media, had another meltdown over this amusing image of President Donald Trump as the next Pope. Obviously, a little bit of fun and frivolity thanks to the wonders of AI. But according to some, it's hugely offensive to Catholics.
Some Catholics were not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics, you mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the internet.
Joining me now is comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein on Blaze TV. Alex, you're a Christian. Were you offended by that image? Do you know many Catholics who are outraged by that image?
Well, a lot of people don't know this. You know, my last name is Stein, but I was actually raised as a Christian. I was baptized. And you know what? As a Christian, that is not disrespectful whatsoever. It is satire. And I honestly believe that, you know, Donald Trump, he knew all about it. And I think he was trying to position himself a little bit because I don't think there are any actual prerequisites to be the Pope. So could you imagine Pope Donald Trump, Rita? The world would actually, it might actually get fixed pretty quick if that was the case.
I can't see that happening. Yeah, maybe after his presidency he can turn his hand to being the next Pope. Now, there may be a few Christians who are offended by this next production, and I'm tipping that's what the creators are hoping for. This isn't just fun and frivolity, is it? You got Adam Lambert joining the cast of Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl playing Judas, and guess who's playing Jesus? It's Cynthia Erivo. That sounds like fun, Alex. Will you be making a trip to Hollywood for opening night?
No way. It's like Dylan Mulvaney's book. Nobody's going to go see this play. Nobody bought Dylan Mulvaney's book. I mean, it is going to get covered by, you know, Sky News, Fox News, the liberal media, because it is interesting. But really, I don't think that anybody actually wants to go see, you know, that horrible production. So Jesus Christ Superstar being extra gay and extra DEI, I mean, give me a break. I just do not think people are going to be clamoring up for that. And you consider, you know, over half the country likes Donald Trump. So over half the country is not going to like it regardless. So I really don't see it being a financial success.
Now, rapper and music mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs was in court for jury selection today. He's facing 5 criminal counts, including sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, transportation for purposes of prostitution, and racketeering conspiracy. Alex, if he's ultimately found guilty, he may never see the outside of a jail cell again. He may die behind bars.
No, and that is a sad reality that is probably going to happen. And listen, I am not on Puff Daddy's side whatsoever. The tape of him beating his fiancée at the time is absolutely disgusting. But it is absolutely crazy to think that Puff Daddy is going to go to jail for sex trafficking, for throwing parties that people all willingly went to. You know, influential people went to these parties, you know, similar to these Epstein parties. So there's just a lot of weird stuff at play. And it's kind of sad that, you know, a guy that was once arguably the top rapper, top producer, you know, in the entire, you know, industry is now going to potentially, you know, die behind bars. It's just a very tragic story, and I don't even think Hollywood could have written it.
Well, it's a self-inflicted tragedy, but you're right. There were a lot of high-profile, very famous people who attended these parties. Are we expecting to hear any of those names in court? Are they fearful of what may be revealed throughout this trial?
I mean, I would think that they would be very nervous. You saw Jay-Z going after, Tony Bobulinski or Tony Busby. I forget the Texas attorney, but I'm just saying there's a lot of influential celebrities that could go down with the ship. And I know that they want Puff Daddy to take some sort of deal so that he doesn't have to actually go to court. So Puff Daddy knows that. He knows that he has a little negotiating power. And that's why he hasn't accepted the plea deal, because he knows that he can, he knows where the berries are bodied. He knows where the bodies are buried, metaphorically.
Well, I hope that's just a metaphor, Alex. He is alleged to have taped so much of this debauchery, so you do wonder what is out there, what the police, FBI have in custody, and if it features some of the famous people that we know attended these parties. Now, let's lighten things up a tad with this amusing story told by former Alabama football coach, the great Nick Saban, about what happened in the Oval Office.
He's got this very big, good-looking, auspicious box on his desk that has a red button on top. And one of the players said, "Is that what you launch the missiles with?" And he said, "Well, push it and find out." Player said, "No, I don't want to do that." He said, "Oh, go ahead, push it, see what happens, find out." So Rashawn Evans finally got the guts up, went over, pushed the red button. Some lady came in with a Coke on a tray.
We're getting all these amusing stories. We've got people within the football fraternity who are no longer terrified of being associated with Trump, being pictured with Trump. It's a very different dynamic than just a few years ago during his first term.
No, and Rita, I graduated from LSU, Louisiana State University, and so it tells you that I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But Alabama's our rival, and even though that I detest Alabama, hearing this story and hearing Coach Saban talking about how they thought it was so funny, and Trump basically trolled the Rashawn Evans or the player to press the button, thinking that he was going to start nuclear war. I love it. I'm so happy that he trolled Alabama. This is the president we wanted. Joe Biden doesn't have that sense of humor. Joe Biden doesn't have any funny buttons or gimmicks to play on the Alabama Crimson Tide. So that's why we love Donald Trump, because he's a man of pizzazz and style and grace.
I love that the players still pressed that button, even suspecting that it could launch some sort of a nuclear weapon somewhere. He still was curious enough to press the button. Now, finally, I know Americans think that Australia is just full of deadly creatures. You have no idea how we survive day to day. And this next story might just reinforce that idea. A South Australian family has helped rescue a great white shark that was stuck in shallow waters. These pictures are quite remarkable. 3 locals teamed up with Nash Kaur and his 11-year-old son to move this 3-metre-long shark, the deadliest shark there is, the great white, into deeper water and save it. Alex, this story is peak Australia, isn't it?
I know. Aussies are just fearless. And that's why a lot of Americans, I think we like Aussies and we get along so well, because they're kind of just like people from Florida. They're insane. They're willing to save a shark. This is a typical, occurrence that happens in the state of Florida. So there's a lot of similarities. And that's why, listen, when you see on TikTok those big spiders, though, Rita, that is scary. We see that in America. We think there's all these big spiders. But everybody talks about how great Australia is, so I need to be there. I'm gonna be there. 2025.
The spiders are big.
And
wonderful. Can't wait. Alex Stein, thank you.